Well, this is a nice little monument to the soldiers from Pike County. Go check this out. I always drive through this town. I never really have a chance to walk around. And this is pretty nice. So I like that. By the way, I figure since I'm waiting here, I do a little video on 9/11. I'm walking over to that bench over there. It looks nice and cozy and shady. Yeah, you know, today is 9/11. Obviously, talking about the falling of the Twin Towers and how tragic that is and all the people's lives that affected. I mean, not just the people who died or got hurt, but, you know, everyone involved, people's family, stuff like that. It's actually really interesting. Just yesterday, I was thinking about 9/11 because I knew it was coming up, and this is what I saw going to work. So how about that? We got two towers there. It was just an odd, random thing. I mean, those towers are for some power lines. They're trying to make the grid a little bit better, so it's more reliable in the wintertime. There's not as many power outages. But it just so happens, I was thinking about it, and I look over, and right on the hill there, there's two towers, two twin towers, just sitting there. And it was a big reminder of 9/11 for me. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about where I was, because that's what they tell you. All these big events, you know, everyone, oh, I'll never forget, I'll remember exactly where I was when this happened. You know, I remember exactly where I was when Kennedy was shot, and, you know, and Nixon, and people died, famous people. I remember where I was when Elvis died. I heard about Elvis, all that kind of stuff. Well, as far as my life goes, 9/11 was a big part of my youth. And I'll never forget where I was. I was in art class when I first heard what happened, when the first plane hit the tower. I was in the middle of art class. I believe I was might have been my freshman year of high school, if not maybe a sophomore. But I was sitting in art class, and one of the teachers ran into the room, like Kramer style from, Seinfeld, and ran over to the teacher and whispered something to the teacher. And the teacher made a little announcement. He just said, you know, I just want to let everyone know that a plane hit one of the Twin Towers. And no one in the class, like, okay, whatever, what's that mean? You know, it's an odd thing. It's a crazy event. At this point, no one knew there was any kind of terrorism involved or anything like that. It was still breaking news, and no one knew what was going on. So I didn't think anything of it. You know, finished the class out. The next class, I heard teachers talking about it, and they're going on, and then, of course, eventually we found out when the second plane hit the building, and we heard about it. You know, there was a second plane that hit the building, and it's like a big deal to everyone. But I personally, I'm not thinking anything of it. You know, planes crash every now and then. I don't see what the big deal is. I really didn't understand why everyone was making such a big deal about it. And then, of course, when the first tower fell, that's when things really started like hitting home, and I realized how serious this was, and a lot of people were talking about, you know, possible terrorism, a possible attack from a different country, and that's when stuff really got serious. And I remember coming home that night from school, and my mom was the first person who I personally talked to about it. My father worked later, so he didn't get home till later. And I remember we talked about whether we were going to talk to my sister about it. My sister was a little girl at the time, and it would be hard to explain to her exactly what happened and why. And of course, for the next, at least week and a half, 2 weeks, just glued to the TV, trying to figure out what happened, you know, watching the events, watching all the footage, and it was horrific. It was, the world had stopped for everyone in the United States and even abroad, many different countries. It's just life was on pause while everyone figured out what happened and why. And it was just the craziest thing in the world. And I remember my parents trying to explain it to my sister, and they asked her, you know, do you understand what's going on? And she's a pretty smart girl. I don't know exactly how old she was, maybe 5 or 6. Well, maybe not even that old, maybe 4 or 5. But she said, yeah, I understand. You know, there's bad people in the world, and they did a bad thing. It was such a serious event, and it impacts everyone. And of course, living in the tri-state area, knowing people who you know, were involved with this, knowing people, you know, who had family members who died, it hit home. You know, you could be out in California or, you know, Florida or something, you're like, oh my God, that's horrible in the city. But when you live close to it, and, you know, there's people around you in your everyday, day-to-day life, it changes their life forever. It really does. There's a woman who lives in the community that I live in, my neighborhood. She doesn't live here anymore. She had moved. but she was the first victim of 9/11. She was walking past the building, and after the first plane hit, a propeller came down and it skinned her back. It hit the top of her back, came all the way down, basically sheared the skin off of her back, took her butt completely off, all the skin, all the way down to bone, stripped the back of her legs, and she ended up going to the hospital as a Jane Doe. She had no ID on her. She just got rushed to the hospital. This is before anything really, anyone knew what was going on. And, every year, of course, the family comes up, they talk about that, they talk about the event and everything. It's insane how many people it really affected and will affect for the rest of their lives. It was a major event, and of course I always feel bad for the families that are involved, and I have pride for all the people who helped. Every firefighter, every police officer, every citizen who did their best to try to help all the people who needed help. It's amazing. The coolest experience about that, because you got to be positive about things, and yes, there is something positive that came out of 9/11, and that was watching people come together. There was no racism, there was no bigotry, there was no I don't like you for this reason. It was just people. It was human beings working together for a common cause to try to help human beings, and it was really the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen that, and then unfortunately, as months pass and years pass, people don't really forget, but they don't have that same feeling of belonging together as a society, and of course it goes back to all the crap that it was before. But yeah, I'll always remember 9/11, and I'll think about it randomly throughout the year. Of course, on its every year at 9/11 you think about it the most because the people are doing ceremonies and they're talking about it. But occasionally it'll come up in my mind, and the thing I remember most though really about it is just how people came together. And it's cool to know that in a serious crisis, people can work together, and it gives us hope as a society that, at the end of the day, we're all just people, and we're all just trying to live and be happy. So, anyway, I just wanted to share where I was during 9/11, and of course, give my thoughts to everyone out there who was involved and who was affected by this event. So that's all. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Take care.